Doug,
Yeah, absolutely.
Doug is an entrepreneur and a founder of Cyanic Automation. Founded since 2014, Doug has dedicated himself to learning and developing best practices in the land surveying business. With a strong foundation in computer science, he combines technical expertise with a deep passion for creating solutions that streamline workflows and boost productivity in surveying companies. One of Doug's notable achievements is the development of Cyanic Automation's flagship project called Job Book, which is what Doug will talk about tonight. Cyanic Job Book is a project management solution designed specifically for land surveyors that implements best practices and allows companies to see real-time job costing, invoice quicker, and improve staff accountability. Beyond his professional endeavors, Doug likes to play rec hockey and cherishes his life in Edmonton, where he resides with his lovely wife and 2 kids. So I love, we met quickly on Friday and I had to laugh. His hockey days, he was playing with, fuddling around with his hockey puck while we were chit-chatting even on Friday. So he's definitely a hockey fan. And we had a quick conversation about the Edmonton and Vegas Golden Knights, of course. So that was a good conversation. But these are obviously one of my passions as well from a project management standpoint. Anything we can do to make better business surveyors. That's one of the things I love as well. So anything we can do to help that along. We had Fred from Q Factor on a couple months ago. We'll have Kai on from Compass. There's about three different ones of these particular softwares. And so Doug's here to answer any questions that might be related to Job Book and or how we can project management side of the survey business. So I will turn it over to Mr. Doug, and then I'll throw a few things in the chat too, because he's got, I'm sure you'll talk about it, but LinkedIn, what's the words? Group that kind of relates to kind of questions and answers as well on LinkedIn side. So lots of resources as well. So I'll be kind of monitoring the chat too. So Mr. Doug, I'll turn it over to you, sir.
For sure.
Thank you for your time.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you for having me. And thanks everyone for coming to my talk on project management software for surveyors. So let's get started. You heard kind of the background about myself, but a bit of a different background. I graduated from computing science at the University of Alberta in 2001. I worked for Honeywell for many years on software automation. We worked for companies like Shell and British Petroleum. Over 10 years ago, I started a small service company. We had a couple crews and did residential and commercial jobs around the Edmonton area in Canada. In 2014, I sold the company. And that year, my friend and I started a software company called Cyanic Automation. We concentrated on software for small to medium-sized businesses and eventually moved into project management software for surveying. Over the years, we've spoken and worked with a lot of surveyors. And from my experience with working with various land surveying companies and doing research in the field, I felt that though the professionals in surveying are excellent on the technical side of surveying, they could use some help along the business side of things. And that's where I hope our software could be of use. It's been designed and refined over the last 5 years to follow best practices for land surveying companies. And I'll talk more about that a little bit later, but that's basically my background. But I kind of want to hear, I do want to hear about everyone else. I know there's quite a few people watching this right now. So I want to hear a little bit about you guys. So what we have here is just, I'll put it in the chat, but, oh, there we go. It's already in, I think. But there's just a link, and it's just some questions. We don't have time for everyone to talk, but just a quick survey to kind of figure out who's kind of watching and who I'm speaking to. If you could just take 30 seconds to kind of fill it out, that'd be awesome. I'll try to refer back to it later on in the presentation. So it's here. If you want to scan it, feel free to scan it and do the little survey. If not, that's cool too. They're just generic questions. I don't think it's anything super proprietary, but that's about it. I'll just give Trent, I'll give everyone a few seconds to kind of fill that out. Is that okay?
Of course, of course.
Yeah, awesome.
There was I jumped on it. Just kind of simple questions, name and email, and then what kind of, how do you manage your clients? How do you manage your jobs? How do you keep track of your employees' times? What accounting system do you use? How do you create invoices? How do you schedule your jobs and manage your tasks? And then how do you track your equipment? So those were the questions that Doug had thrown on there. So
it's one page.
Yep, super quick and easy.
It shouldn't take too much time. I'll give everyone a few more, like 20 more seconds kind of thing.
Yep. He's not selling your information. How's that?
No. No, definitely not. Oh yeah, and yeah, Trent put in that group. I think
I did. Yeah,
assume,
sorry. That was
business of land surveying.
Yep, that was the group that we talked about. So the very first link on the chat is the group,
and I'll have the towards the end. I'll have it displayed for you guys too if you need. But it's probably easier to click on it from the thing. But yeah, okay. Maybe I'll leave it there. If people can do it on the side, I guess. And maybe I'll continue. Maybe. Why not? Oh,
Ready, set, go.
Ready, set, go. Okay. So maybe I'll start here kind of with first principles and ask if anyone knows why businesses exist. Does anyone? So the purpose of a business is to make a profit. No. Profit, of course, is the difference between the amount earned and the amount spent, or put another way, revenue minus expenses. So remember, the purpose of a business is to make a profit. It's not to do a lot of work, it's to make a profit. Now, I can't tell you how many people I've spoken with that do a lot of work, but don't make enough profit. And what we're trying to do is change that. So in this webinar, we're here to answer the question, how do you know if you're making or losing money on a job? I'm assuming if you're here, you've come to the realization that checking your bank account every week or month isn't cutting it. The systems you have in place at the office aren't cutting it, and Excel certainly isn't cutting it. You know there's a better way, and I'm hoping to show you one. And as Trent said, full disclosure, there are many solutions to this problem. The one I have was made specifically for land surveying companies, but that doesn't mean there aren't others. For this webinar, I'd like to bring I like to make it as interactive as possible. So just fair warning, I'm going to be asking a lot of questions, and it would be really helpful if we had some brave people that would unmute and respond to some of them. I promise I'm not going to ask any tricky questions or ask you questions that might be embarrassing to answer. And you might even find that like a lot of the questions are pretty simple and obvious, but I'm looking for everyone here to kind of share their experiences and insights. The idea is to try to get some participation here, so people can learn from their peers and see that there's other people with the same problems, and try to find solutions. So with that, before I jump into showing you the solution that we have, let's talk about the keystone for any successful business, and that's project management. Without proper project management, chaos will ensue. Effective project management is not only the best practice, but a critical factor for success in business, and it plays a direct role in a firm's profitability. But perhaps for the people here, maybe I'm preaching to the choir. You know the importance of project management, but perhaps your organization is having challenges in certain aspects of it. So let's kind of talk about some of the challenges. So let me ask you, do any of you have any of these problems? You finished a job and just can't figure out why you were so far off on your estimates. You're putting together an estimate and you don't know if you or your crews have done other jobs in the area that could save time. Like things like, do you have control or benchmarks in the area? Are your time and material jobs missing timesheets or time? Are billing change orders, like, are you billing change orders? Are billable items missed? The customers call you and you don't easily know the status of a job. As the owner or manager, can you easily tell how your company's jobs are doing? Do you know your utilization? Are you late submitting invoices? Not just late, but they take a lot of time. How do your administrators even know when to invoice? Are your administrators having to work weekends or Saturdays in order to get payroll and other things ready for Monday? How are you dealing with accountability of your staff, both in the good sense and the bad? Do you know who your most effective employees are? Do you know what your employees make for you on average? Do you know if you're making or losing money on a job? Think about who can answer some of these problems. If it's just the accountant, that's not good. If the answers to some of these problems are, we just ask the accountant, you're doing something wrong. Even if it's the owner, that could be a problem too. Think for a moment who has access to the accounting system in your company. Your administrators, project managers, and estimators need to be able to solve some, if not all, of these problems. And those people do not typically have access to your accounting system. Question for everyone here. Does anyone here have any problems that aren't on this list that you maybe want to bring up for everyone?
I do.
Yeah, tell me.
Nice.
Like time to even put things in a project management system.
Got it.
Just to start it or put the stuff we have in there. It's just too time consuming. So
Yeah, and I've heard that before. Supply costs. Brian. Supply. Oh, so yeah, like I've heard that before. Like, just not, you're so busy, you just don't have the time to do anything. Like, you're just running around, and you know, that's a hard one. You kind of have to. You kind of have, you know, these systems actually do save you time. They save everyone time. The trick is kind of getting them on and getting all the staff using it.
Collections.
And yeah, collections is a problem. Yeah.
Yeah.
Is anyone here charging upfront at all, like 50% or 20% upfront? Is that, like, I know in some states or in provinces that might be a bit of an issue, but yeah, and that usually helps. But yeah, you know, I've heard things like everything exists in one person's head, you know, for a lot of companies, and that's really a symptom of not having a software system in place. And it's very common for a lot of survey firms that we work with before, that everything is in just one person's head, maybe the administrator's head or the owner's head or whatever. They know where everything is, and God forbid they disappear, because then you're SOL. Now look, I understand these are hard problems, and you know, I didn't come here to talk about problems, so let's look at some kind of solutions here.
Well, I've got a question.
Yeah,
too.
please.
I mean, most of the places I've worked or dealt with don't have a system where time is put in daily, and you can't manage a project if you can't see what's spent on it. And so you need some kind of system, and then you need to be able to get your employees to use it and put it in daily. This once a week timesheet stuff just doesn't get it done.
I 100% agree. I agree 100%. It's even in my talk. Yeah, you cannot do timesheets. I'll talk about it a little later, but yeah, 100%. You can't do timesheets weekly. That's no bueno. But yeah, I'll talk about that a little bit later for sure. Yeah, and for the record, by the way, like getting people to do timesheets, it's not a technical problem. It's a social engineering problem. Like you got to crack the whip on people. You gotta. I mean, I do a whole talk just on timesheets, but like, you have to get them to understand the reasons behind it, because a lot of the staff just don't understand why they do the timesheets. And I find that sometimes it helps for you to explain to them how the whole system is working, so they actually know, because a lot of these people think these timesheets just go nowhere, right? They think it's just a pain. I just have to do it, and then it just kind of disappears, and they don't see the big picture. When they don't see it, human beings, when it's a psychological thing, when human beings feel like what they're doing is completely useless, they stop kind of doing it. There's a Harvard, a little sidetrack, but there's like a Harvard example where they get people to build paper airplanes, and then at the end of them doing it for 20 minutes, the guy just tosses them all in the garbage and says, "Okay, now do it for another 20 minutes." And the other group, when they made the paper airplanes, they said, "Oh, these are great. We're going to give them to all these sick kids, and they're going to have so much fun." And then when the next 20 minutes, the group that got kind of they could see there's a purpose for it, they made a lot more paper airplanes than the other group that saw it all go into the garbage. So it's just some of that is really psychological, but yeah, I'll talk about that a little bit later. So this is one of the reports in Job Book, and usually I like starting things at the beginning, but in this case, maybe it's better to start at the end. I'm not going to show you guys. I'm gonna try not showing you guys a bunch of boring things, like how to enter items into the system, or how to create timesheets on the phone. Assume for this that all the back end work has already been done. The staff is putting in timesheets, and all the information is kind of there. So this is kind of after the fact. I'm going to show you. So this screenshot here is one of the reports in Job Book, like I mentioned. This is a demo system with fake data, so don't get too hung up on things like dates and amounts. I just want to use this to kind of illustrate a point and give you a feel for like our solution and our software here. So this is the active job dashboard in Job Book. And this is where the rubber hits the road. This is where you look at your jobs at a high level, and where you go to deep dive into jobs to see where they went south. You might not be able to see this, the text so clearly, so I'll just zoom in a little bit here. And what I'm going to do is zoom in on this particular job, this job up here. So hope everyone can kind of see this, but starting in the left column and working our way to the right, what you'll see here is this is the job number. With our system, you can create job numbers of any type, even job numbers with dashes and letters. And I've worked with a ton of survey firms, and every firm, it seems, has this particular way of numbering their jobs. Does anyone know why job numbers are so important to people? Because every survey firm I deal with, they need job numbers a certain way. Why is that? Can anyone tell me out of curiosity?
Ultimately tracking, or just from a map standpoint, or just going backwards, right? I mean, file structure for the computer, like
tracking, filing the data, and that's, and I think so. One, it's like, oh, when you we start all the jobs with 23, because that's the year that we, and then if you see a job that says 21, you did it in 2021 kind of thing, right? Part of that is like back in the day when they didn't really have computers, just file cabinets, that's where it kind of comes from. And I feel like in the archiving, I feel like in this world now, with everything being digital, software and search, it's not as required, but that's just a thing. Next over here, after the job number, you have client. After that, you have the project manager responsible for the job. After that, we have the status. You can see what the status is of the job. The status can be changed to a multitude of statuses. You have job setup, ready to schedule, field work in progress, drafting, in town for approvals, and many more. Job statuses are handy when customers call out of the blue or when upper management wants to check in on the statuses of jobs. After statuses, we have billing type. Out of curiosity, do you guys keep track of like what type of job it is, whether it's a T&M job or a fixed price job, or what kind of billing types do you guys have in your organizations?
We're all fixed.
Yeah, all fixed.
Very, very rarely do we have a T&M, but
yeah. So different. I've seen different survey firms have. Yeah, depends on what the client agrees to. So in our system, we have fixed price, T&M, non-chargeable, and overhead. Those are the kind of classes of jobs you can have. In the beginning of a company, most of your jobs are going to be fixed price, maybe with a few T&M jobs. As you grow, and you're going to move away from hiring contractors and paying them hourly, making them 100% billable to having employees who aren't typically 100% utilized. When an employee, be it an administrator or field staff, go on salary, it's inevitable that a percentage of their time is not billable work. And that's where the non-chargeable and overhead jobs come into play. For overhead, you can think of, pay time off or administrative work. And you should still be tracking all those things. You shouldn't just be tracking billable work. You should also be tracking non-chargeable and overhead work. And we'll talk about utilization a little bit later. Next, you have the due date, then the PO amount. You don't need to have an actual PO. This just represents, the estimated amount of the job, whether it's fixed price or T&M. Even with T&M jobs, it's still kind of pseudo fixed price because no one gives you a blank check to run up to $1 million. You always kind of give them something, but it's kind of T&M, I find at least. This PO number is really important because you're going to compare it to some other things, namely the DWR number. This stands for daily work record, or DWR amount. This is all the time and equipment charged to a job. In Job Book, we collect timesheets in the system. It's not just timesheets; it includes time, equipment, and materials. We can even collect signatures out in the field. So this is why we call these DWRs and not timesheets, because we collect, equipment, materials, all that goes into the DWR. The DWR amount represents the total burn on a job. So it includes staff time, like I said, equipment, materials, and any other expenses that you would be billing to the customer. Can anyone think of any expenses you bill to customers that aren't time, equipment, and materials? Anything? We've seen like some examples of things that aren't like, overhead, yeah, sure. If you bill overhead to the customer, but like some things that we've seen are like legal fees or municipal fees that get passed on to the customer. So that would be in the DWR. Any kind of third-party charges that get passed to the customer, that would be on there, other than like your hours and what have you. The next column here is expenses. Now, in our system, expenses are items that the company are going to pay their employees back as a reimbursement. So basically, these expenses represent any reimbursement that goes back to the employees. How do you guys handle expenses in your organization? Like Trent, do you guys company cards, or like how do you? Okay.
Yeah,
right?
Everybody's a company card, and then like you talked about mapping some middle fees or any of that kind of stuff. Like, I mean, those are kind of our
Yeah.
pass through costs or whatever. But yeah, no, everybody's company card. So
Yeah. And Glenn's saying like per diem. So yeah, so you pay them a per diem flat, and then whatever expenses they have, that they just pay. So in some cases, I've seen some companies where the employees do pay it on their personal card, and then they have to submit an expense to the company to get the money back. And that's just what these expenses are over here. And like for like, I'll pick on Trent's company, they wouldn't have any expenses because everything goes on their company card. So there wouldn't really be any expenses exactly, or maybe very few if they, for reasons, I don't know. Yeah. So like, examples of expenses that I've seen are things like hotel costs, gas, ferry trips. You guys get the idea. Anything that employee pays for that isn't on the company card. And like we said, some companies have no expenses as it's all on the company. Yeah. Mileage, if people are submitting mileage, that would be on an expense, things like that. Okay. And now towards the end here, we have the invoice amount. This is the sum total of all invoices given to the customer for the job. Ideally, the invoice amount should equal the PO amount. And it should be less than or equal to the DWR amount, ideally, right? Because your burn should be less than what you're invoicing for, ideally. And then finally over here, we have the last invoice date. So you can see that. Pretty self-explanatory there. And then over here we have these 3 buttons here. One of them is a charge out rate report, and this will show you all the timesheets that match with all the invoices that they apply to. And then there's the charge out rate summary report. That's that LI over there, and this will show you an aggregate for the amount per line item on a job. And then finally, there's that $sign, and this would be to like invoice. So like if your administrator is just invoicing like a fixed price thing, they would just hit that $sign, it would create an invoice. And we can talk about that a little later. The other way is if you're doing a lot of T&M jobs where you need to take all your timesheets and kind of convert those into invoices. And I can show you how we do that. So are there any questions on this so far?
so far, so good.
So far, so good. Excellent. Just 1 second. I'm trying to, okay, maybe there we go. Okay, so note that the active job dashboard is the dashboard that owners, administrators, and project managers use to manage their day. The owners can use it to look at the overall status of all jobs in flight. The administrators can use this dashboard to invoice jobs and quickly look at the status of jobs. And the project manager uses this dashboard to manage individual projects and help manage the customer. It's here where you can see in real time if projects are going south and customers need to be managed. Now, if you remember some of the problems we had a few slides back, the 2 that come to mind are, how do you know if your job, how do you know how your jobs are going? Well, you would know that here. And how profitable your jobs are, you can see that here too. But I'm sure, like, as you guys know, if we look at this job, every job has a story, right? Every job that you do has a story behind it. So, and this job here has a story too. So let's take a little bit of a closer look here. You'll notice here that the PO amount was 9,750, but the DWR amount, the burn here, that you burned 11,259. Now that doesn't look good, but if you look at your invoice amount, you can see that you invoiced 11,011. So what's our guesses on what happened on this job? What do you guys think happened? And it's not a trick question. I'm curious. What do you guys think happened here? So yeah, amended PO, added services. Yeah. Billed too much. Yeah, maybe they messed up and they billed too much. Yeah, labor. There's the answer could be anything. Like every job has a story. Change orders, amended the PO, added services, all that. That's all that is possible. But what we can do here is we can take a closer look specifically at this job. So let's take a deep dive into the job and look at the charge out rate report. So I'm going to just click here. This is the charge out rate report. And it might be hard to see, so I'm just going to zoom in. And okay, that's a little better. So before I get too deep into this report, I just want to quickly point out some things. So this is the charge out rate report. So this is the DWR line item column. Okay. So when you use our system here, everything is blank. And line items are created by the companies using the system. So all these line items are custom made. You can create any line item you like and set the DWR unit to whatever you like. So you can, you can have days, hours, you can make the unit even sandwiches, doesn't matter. This report is a comparison from the timesheet your staff produced on the job compared to the invoice amount. So what this is showing us here is it's showing you all the timesheets and then what you invoice them. So if you look at the bottom, you'll notice the totals. Okay, so the totals here is 11,259 versus an invoice amount of 11,011. So again, if you just look at this the way it is, why are these two numbers different? So you invoiced 11,011, but your total was 11,259. So why is there a difference there?
Your field assistant was not invoiced.
Yeah, at the very bottom here, it's missing. Now, of course, the question is, why wasn't it invoiced? And again, your guys' answer is as good as mine, right? Like every job has a story. Why wasn't it invoiced? 1,000,001 reasons. Maybe you forgot about it. Maybe you couldn't for reasons. Maybe you made a mistake and this is you paying for that mistake. I don't know. Or maybe you just forgot. But it's very easy to see here. And again, this is just a comparison, comparison of the two. The point of this report is simply to show you what has been accounted for and what hasn't. Now, I'll also point out a couple things here. Most of these numbers, if you look, they're the same, right? So the survey crew worked for 8 hours and you invoice them for 8 hours. But that doesn't need to be the case. Okay, over here, this is just an example where the survey crew worked for 6 hours and you invoice them for 8. So like, what does this mean? Like, do you know what does this mean exactly? That someone worked for 6 hours and you invoice them for 8. Basically means that, a staff member, if they're hourly, got paid for 6 hours and you invoice them for 8. So this allows you, minimum crew rate, standard day rate. There's a million reasons why. And what I'm just showing you here is that the timesheets don't necessarily need to equate to what you invoice. And there's many reasons why that would happen. Are there any kind of questions on this charge out rate report exactly? So, just remember the function of this report is simply to show you what has been invoiced versus what your company has burnt on the job. So if you recall, we're trying to figure out why this job had a PO for $97.50, but you burnt $11,259. Now this report might not answer that, but there's another report that hopefully will answer that. So I'm just going to go back here, and what I'd like to do is look at the charge out rate summary report. So over here, if I click on the eye, so this is the charge out rate summary report. And again, it's probably a little hard to see, so let me zoom in here. And okay, so what we're looking at here is a summary of all the line items associated with the job. every time you create a job in Job Book, you assign line items to a job, right? So the estimator here came in and they created all this. So line items are things like, field crew hours, CAD hours, project management hours, PLS hours, and so on. It also includes like equipment and material, marker post, mileage, all that stuff. So when you create a job in the system, you add all these hours, and there's templates and things you can use. And I'm not going to get too deep into that, but that's what you can do as an estimator. So, when you create a job in Job Book, you create an estimate amount for each of the line items associated with the job. When your staff work on the job, they will start recording hours and items amounts to the jobs. So they'll, on their timesheet, they'll say, well, I did whatever, the survey crew for 8 hours, and then that will start burning away for survey crew. Like, does this summary kind of make sense to you guys? And what we're seeing here is basically just, yeah, okay, so it makes sense. So, right, you have a budgeted quantity, you have a budgeted amount, you have the delta between what you actually did. And if you look down here, this is giving you a total. So this is totaling the entire budgeted amount. So when the estimator created this job, he estimated basically that this job would cost $10,640. Okay. Can you break out labor and expenses? You can, but not in this, I suppose. Not in this particular one, but like this is the labor and expenses. Like, well, it's labor and equipment and materials. So all your expenses would be in here, yes. So yeah, so over here you have this as the total, and if you look over here, this is your burn rate. So you budgeted 10,640 versus the DWR amount of 11,259 versus the total here. You invoiced 11,011 and the PO was for 9,750. So you'll note that you can see very clearly here that in this case, the estimator figured the job would take 10,640, yet the PO was 9,750. So what's interesting about this job is the estimator, when they estimated it, when they first created the job, he was already over what the PO'd for. So another question for everyone here is, how would this happen? Like, why would someone budget for like $11,000 but get a PO for 9? Does that ever happen to you guys?
We can work faster. We'll get them to work faster.
We'll get them to work faster. Yeah. All right. Like I've heard all sorts of reasons. I've heard lost leader. I've heard before people say, "Oh, it's a lost leader. We'll get in at the low price, and then we'll get them later because we'll get so much more work from them later on." Right? I've heard that.
Oh gosh, the carrot.
Maybe,
Yeah.
Dangle the carrot.
maybe you took something out of the project. You eliminated one small item.
There you go.
You get rid of $1,000.
That's right.
Yeah, maybe. Again, every job has a story, right? Every job has a story, and there's all tons of fog of war. The other story I heard was, he knew it was going to be 10,600. He went this because he knew that anything over 10,000 they wouldn't approve, or maybe the guy that the position he couldn't get over 10, so he had to go under 9, and they knew that they could get change orders later to get the right amount.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anything, your idea is as good as mine, right? Yeah, client was limited to under 10,000, change. Yeah, exactly. Anything. Yeah. So Rishi had that. So it happens. All the answers are correct here. So can anyone, if you look at this, can you guys tell why this job went over budget? Like, so it did technically go over budget, right? Because 11,259, and the invoice 11,011, and he estimated it would be this. So assuming that he was honestly estimating it, why did this job go over budget? Can you guys tell?
The project manager was very efficient, but the crew was not.
Yeah, right. So if you look here, you see this is not minus 18. So they went over by 18 hours. And I'm not like, I'm not saying it's the fault of the survey crew whatsoever. The point of this thing, and it's just an example, is that it's really easy to kind of see where things went wrong. So it gives you like a line item by line item view of a job, and can really help you see where things went poorly on the job. So if you wanted to dive deeper, you can also, by the way, we have job notes in here on the timesheets and things, so you can see what's going on there. And you can also use the support to analyze jobs and perhaps find errors in reporting. So as an example, if you look at this, and Trent kind of spoke to it a little bit, is, oh, the project manager did a great job. And that could be like, so this was under budgeted by 12 hours. So how come? And so it could be that he did well. There's some other stories. We had a customer down in Texas using our system. They were a large survey firm, around 80 people, I believe, at the time. And they implemented our system. And they told me in the first month, they saved/found $80,000 simply because project managers were not coding their jobs correctly. So project managers were actually coding their job, not to project management, but to admin. And they weren't billing for admin time, they were billing for project management time. So they ended up finding all these hours that should have been billed to a project that they could have legitimately billed to, that they were literally like losing. So they found $80,000 with this system. So this is why these kind of reports are really useful and helpful for you guys, because you can really easily see this stuff. Now, you might make the argument, oh, this is all in our accounting system, but the problem is accounting systems are made for accountants. I'm a pretty smart guy. I can't use accounting systems, right? Because they're made for these accountants with this accounting world. And this is really the project management. Yeah, the project manager wasn't efficient if he didn't. Yeah.
I love it, George.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly, George. So anyways, the other thing that this report really helps is getting feedback to the estimators. Estimating is an incredibly hard job. And any feedback going back to the estimators afterwards is incredibly valuable to them. And it's not like you do an estimate and the next day you start working. Some of these estimates can take months, if not sadly years, to start happening all of a sudden. And it's really good to review those things, so like this whole thing could just be the estimator was off. Who knows, right? So yeah, that's the story of the charge out rate summary report. Are there any questions about like this that I kind of maybe missed, or that you want to see?
Looks self-explanatory.
Yeah. This system, what we kind of pride ourselves on is the fact of how easy this system is. It's an incredibly simple system to use. We try to keep it as simple as possible. It's not easy all the time, believe it or not, keeping it simple. Thanks, Rishi. Yeah, so like the function of this report, does it have a specific variance report? I'm not sure what that means. So like you can see the delta here, Glenn. So I'm not sure what you mean by variance report, but we can talk about that. The function of this report is to help you with estimating and help you figure out where exactly your jobs went south. So, with the active job dashboard and these two reports that I've just shown, you can really see in real time how your projects are going and deep dive into where issues could be in your projects before it's too late. So yeah, is the PO the accepted proposed? So, okay, Good question. Aiden. So is the PO the accepted proposed from the client? Depends. You can make, like, the PO is what the PO is. So if in your company you decide that that PO amount is only what is accepted by the client, then that's what it is. If you decide to change that number to whatever you want, that's fine too. It's almost the same. Like our system is really flexible like I didn't really talk about this so much, and we can maybe talk about it later. But there is T&M, fixed price, non-billable, and overhead. And what you decide is overhead and non-billable is really up to you. But yeah. So where I want to go with this now, if there's no more question, is the dashboard. And I'll kind of talk a little more about how all this magic happens. So I kind of showed you the end where this is kind of a job that was done and all the magical hours are there. I'll kind of show you how we got here. So yeah. So 1 second. So, oh yeah, well, before I go to the dashboard here, are there any last questions about the active job dashboard? At this point, I think I've answered how you can tell if you're making or losing money on a job. And I'll just throw it out there. Like, does anyone have any tools like this? That will do this for you, like, do you guys have this at work somewhere? Like, I know Trent does, but like, does it? I'm just curious, the people like watching right now, do you guys have something like this, or what? Yeah, BST, right?
We're using Deltek Vantage Point.
Yeah, Deltek, BST, and I find the larger engineering and survey companies are using that. Whether they like it or not, because the engineers kind of make them. We have engineering companies with survey arms that are using both, using our system and some sort of Deltek system where it's really funny because the engineers actually go to the surveyors to get the real-time numbers because they're behind by weeks or months. Yeah, cost point, it's a nightmare. So yeah, so I know you guys are all dying to see more, so I'll hit navigate here, and I'll show you kind of the dashboard here. So this is the dashboard for Job Book. I'm not going to bore you, and go into everything. I'll just kind of quickly go over the cards here, and then I'll dive into some interesting cards and show you. So over here, this is your client database. This is your active job dashboard. That's where I just showed you. And this is where you create jobs in the system. This is the tasking and scheduling system. This is a new module for us. We're adding it, and it allows you to assign tasks and create schedules for your crews and departments. So if anyone is interested, I won't get into this in this talk, but if anyone's interested in like checking out our tasking and scheduling system, come see me after the webinar. Well, we're always happy to give early access, in exchange for feedback. These are the daily work records. So this is where you put in timesheets. That's where all your database of timesheets. Can you import an Access database from our current system? Yeah, I mean, we typically work with survey firms to import their data from their old systems, and that's kind of on an ad hoc basis. But yeah, we have programmers here that we can definitely get data out of Access, no problem. It's just we'd have to talk about that basically afterwards if you're interested. Typically, what we do is people use the system, confirm that it works for them, and then they'll import their old data either with us or with a summer student over the summer kind of thing. Yeah, tasking and scheduling for Rishi's interested in that for sure. We can show that to you. Over here, there's the invoices. This is your database of all your invoices. Oh, by the way, with the daily work records over here, these are your timesheets. Some people call them LEMs, labor equipment materials. These are your invoices over here, all your database of invoices. Down in here, these are your rate sheets. I'm sure you guys are all familiar that companies have rate sheets, different jobs have different rates, different customers have different rates. That gets all done in here. And then you can assign it to a client. You can override it on a job specifically, do whatever you like. These are our workflows. So this allows you to accomplish tasks very quickly. So inside this card is the timesheet approval backlog, which I'll show you in a minute, the invoice backlog, expense approvals, and an integration to your accounting system. For time and expense reports, this card over here, this allows you to do payroll with the time card report. There's a time grid, and this is used to make sure your staff are doing your timesheets daily. So this is, you go to the time grid and you kind of crack the whip on people who haven't done their timesheets that day. And eventually they get used to it when they know that they're being people are after them every day to do their timesheets. Eventually that becomes like normal for them at the end of the day to do their timesheets and get things done. In the beginning, it's difficult. The utilization report, I'll show you a little bit later. We talked about that earlier. I'll show you that. There's an expense report here for doing your expenses. Oh, we have the cost reports. There's 2 reports in here. It's a WIP report, work in progress report, and a line item report. So this lets you look at all your line items and see all your hours and how much you use things. This is kind of interesting when you're doing things, line items, like when you're figuring out if you want to buy or rent equipment. This would be good. You look at this and look at the last year of data and see if it was actually worth it, or whether you should be maybe leasing or renting equipment. These are personal reports. Different people in our system will see different things. So if you're like a field staff, you'll see a limited amount of these cards versus an administrator would see all of them. This is the expenses over here. So this is all your expenses. We have a little safety system in here, health and safety system, that you can do your health and safety, because everyone loves doing health and safety at work. And finally, there's the job map over here. And I'll show you what that looks like in a little minute. So I plan on showing you a few interesting cards, but not all of them. If you're interested in anything in particular, feel free to ask me. Ask me now or after the workshop. I'll be happy to show you, give you a demo. Are there any kind of general questions about these cards? Like, do these cards make sense? Maybe a loaded question, but like, does that work?
It's definitely a loaded question. I would say, of course, my favorite obviously is the job maps.
Yeah,
which is a huge selling point.
Yeah.
For me, because I love being able to see all that stuff. But anybody want to see? I know you had the one, safety. Does it calculate an EMR on a safety? So my insurance actually calculates that, Glenn. My insurance agent is the one that calculates the EMRs.
Everything in our system can be kind of exported to Excel natively. So that's kind of out of the box. And the health and safety system here is I almost want to say like it'll have like your tailgate meetings and all that stuff, but there's not a ton of reporting on it. I mean, potentially we could, but everything goes out to Excel, so that we find that that's kind of easier. Yeah, I can quickly dive in. I have a few slides left, and I'll try to I'll kind of go into these. So I'll show you the approval backlog. This is the timesheet approval backlog over here. So this is what this looks like. This is the DWR approval backlog, also known as a timesheet approval backlog. And before I get into this, I guess let me take a step back and talk a little about timesheets that everyone loves. So best practices, as we talked about earlier and agreed to by at least one person, is timesheets need to be done and submitted daily. So even if you have staff that remember with absolute certainty what they did on Monday morning, on Friday afternoon, there are other reasons for daily time submission. So even if you have guys with perfect memory, Yeah, there's a whole article we wrote on it, but staff, you have to explain to staff, staff aren't an island. Timesheet information goes to billing and financials, and things move fast in the surveying world, and getting data 5 days later have knock-on effects that can mean not getting costing information to make informed decisions, and can mean delayed invoicing. And therefore, that's going to delay you receiving payments that will affect cash flow. So your staff need to be doing timesheets daily, but I'm sure you guys are preaching to the choir here. Now, besides staff doing timesheets daily, project managers need to be approving timesheets. So this is the screen here that we built for the PMs to easily and quickly approve timesheets. And they go in and they can bulk approve a bunch of timesheets all at once. So best practices, PM should be approving timesheets first thing in the morning or even the night before. And timesheets, of course, not done weekly, no matter who tells you that. So to figure out what timesheets belong to what project manager, simply look at the project manager column here. And these are all your project managers. And you can filter this out. Or just look for your name, whatever you like. And if you want to get more details about a specific timesheet, you can click this little blue arrow here, and it will expand it out. So this is one timesheet here, and you can go into the timesheet if you click here, but you can also just open this up like this, and it tells you exactly, shows you the details of the timesheet. And then if you want to approve this timesheet, you just click on these little boxes here, you click on them, and then you click on this blue, orange button here, and it approves all the timesheet that you clicked off on. It's a fairly straightforward screen. It's simple, easy to use. Are any questions about this?
So you have multiple approvers per staff member on time approvals?
So right now, any project manager can approve anyone's timesheets. If you're a project manager, you can approve anyone's timesheet. So as an example, Drew here is the project manager for this thing, but anyone that has access as a project manager can approve this, but their name is on it. So, and we have kind of like auditability here. So you can see who did what, when. Is the timesheet automatically appear for a crew day? So no, it doesn't. The crews have to create it, but with our system, I didn't mention this, but so this is made for the kind of surveyors. So we have the concept where you have like a party chief making timesheets for many people. You can do that with our system. So you're not required that every person needs to create a timesheet. As long one person can create 5 people's times, can enter that in, and then you'd see that. Yeah. So, and the problem with like kind of doing that automatically is you never really know what people are doing when. But yeah. Can you do timesheets on your phone while on a project? Absolutely. So everything here is mobile friendly. You can do this on your cell phone, not a problem. So yeah, that's kind of timesheets, and this is like the approval of said timesheets. Yeah, the next thing I wanted to show you after that approval of timesheets is the DWR invoice backlog. Now, this is a DWR invoice backlog. And this is maybe a silly question, but in your company, who creates invoices? Who creates invoices? Accounting. Administration, accounting, right? Right. So here's where like administrators go to create invoices from timesheets. Now, this specifically, if you do fixed price jobs, this will be empty. If all 100% fixed price, this will be empty. If you do T&M jobs at all, that's where this thing gets populated from. And then what the idea here is that you take the T&M jobs and you select all of them and you say create an invoice. And it takes all those hours and turns them into an invoice. And this is where administrators would do this. An administrator in our system would create the invoice. And then there's another workflow where a project manager goes in and approves that invoice. Because at the end of the day, administrators don't no knock on administrators, but accountants, administrators don't know what happened in the field. Don't know that, yeah, the guy put in his timesheet for 6 hours, but we're going to bill him for 8. Or the guy worked for 10 hours, but we're going to bill him from 8, or whatever. So the project managers still need to go and look at these invoices and review them and approve those invoices, right? So that's what this is for. It's for the T&M jobs where they would click on those ones and then go and invoice selected DWRs, and poof, it creates the invoice out of it. You know, if you remember, you know, at the beginning of the workshop, we spoke about problems. One of the problems that we talked about was late submitting invoices or invoices taking too long to generate. This is what helps with that. That helps you solve that problem. Because now your administrators know exactly, because you've done timesheets every day. You do timesheets. Your PMs every day are approving the timesheets. Now the administrators can come in and they can go and take all those T&M jobs and turn them into invoices. So that's being reduced. It also helps reduce, you know, administrative time and puts the company on rails. So when like a new staff arrives, onboarding is really easy. I find with a lot of these administrators and a lot of the work that administrators do, it's like this secret magic sauce that everyone has. And you really don't want to get in that position, because then you lose that administrator and then everything goes to hell. And these administrators do so much for your company. If they're invoicing things, they're so critical. And what you really want to do is get a process and put people on rails so they can't go and do their own little thing. And that's what this is for, and that's what this helps with. And then what the knock-on effects is, now when you train a new administrator, it doesn't take you months and years to get them up to speed. They know exactly what they have to do. Yeah, any questions about like the invoice backlog? I'm trying to be kind of a little bit cognizant of the time here, so I know we're a little bit over.
Yeah, no, you're good. You're good.
Okay. Yeah, so after the DWR approval, what I wanted to quickly show you too is the time card report. So the time card report is used when yes, sorry. So going back a little to the DWR invoice backlog. Once you select an item, it comes off the backlog. Yes. So you select it, you put it in there, poof, it's gone. So ideally, this thing is going to be fairly empty, ideally. Although, you know, you have jobs and you can't invoice right away. So realistically, there's always a little bit of a backlog there, unlike the DWR approval backlog, where it should be empty by noon, because you've already, in the morning, you've already approved them all. But yeah, for the time card report here, you know, you can do a lot with this report. But mainly what people use this for is generating payroll. So our system, we do timesheets in our system. So we get the raw hours, and the administrators go in here, they sort by employee. So you lift this and you sort it by employee, and it tabulates and gets you all the hours. So you can imagine like a 2-week period, you sort it by the employee, and then that's your 2-week pay period or the 1-month pay period. And that's how you can pay for the employee. And then you export this to Excel over here, and those are your raw hours. And then from there, you'll throw that into your payroll system, whatever that is, whether it's Sage, whether it's some sort of ADP or what have you, and you do payroll that way. And this saves people a ton of time for doing payroll. I've had administrators at mom and pop companies tell me literally it gave them their weekends back. You know, we had people that, you know, little company, you know, the father's a surveyor, the daughters are kind of doing the admin stuff, and the daughter was every Sunday working on payroll so things could work on Monday. And when they implemented this, she's like, Doug, I have my Sundays back with the family. That was awesome. So this can really help. You can do other things here too. You can do things like sorting it by line items or sorting it by client, like show me the best client that we have, like for hours, for labor hours, best job, what have you, best month. You can sort this all out, filter, whatever you like. All of our reports are typically the same. You can filter, this thing's a filter, yada, yada, yada. Yeah, any questions about this time card report? I can always jump back real quick.
There you go.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's the time card report. The other thing I want to show you, because we talked about a little bit, was utilization, I believe. So I can talk about the utilization report here. This is a neat report. This will tell you a bunch of different stuff, whether your staff are overworked or underworked, and some other really neat things. So I'll just, again, zoom in a little bit here. And I'll just go over the columns real quick. It's pretty self-explanatory. This is your employee column. This is your list of all your employees. Oops. Oops. Yeah. Okay, these are your employees. I did the wrong clicking. These are your employees. Over here, these are your T&M hours. So these are all your hours that you worked on a T&M job. These are your fixed price hours. These are your non-chargeable hours. These are your overhead hours, and these are your total hours. Pretty self-explanatory. Does anyone know the difference between non-chargeable hours and overhead hours, out of curiosity? And maybe it's a trick question, because, well, I mean, it's not exactly, but does anyone know what the difference between non-chargeable and overhead?
Well, that goes into your audited overhead allowables. Yeah.
So in our system, really, it's whatever you want it to be technically, because you can just assign things to different things. But for the utilization reports, if someone worked, 100 non-chargeable hours, they're still 100% utilized. Versus if they work overhead hours, they're not utilized. So non-chargeable hours are still utilizable, if that makes any sense. So non-chargeable for me at least would mean work that someone did that you couldn't bill them out for, but it's still work. It could have been chargeable, versus admin overhead where you're just pay time off, training, washing the truck. That would have been overhead hours, versus non-chargeable, which would have been maybe work that we just couldn't charge the customer for, but it was still work that the guy did. And then utilization, this is the percentage here, and it basically takes the non-chargeable, fixed price, and T&M, and divided by all four of these, if that makes sense to you. So you can figure out your utilization that way. Then over here, this is the T&M amount. Oh, and I should mention this about utilization. Why we care about utilization is because if your staff aren't all contractors or salaried employees, you don't actually want them to be 100% utilized, because what you're going to do is you're going to burn them out. And the rule of thumb, to preventing burnout, is that your staff should be around 80 to 90% utilized. And so this is just good to know where you're sitting with this. Some companies, that engineering company with the survey department, they were always asking for utilization. And so one of our customers actually was complaining about this, and I said, "Oh, we can make this for you." So we made the support, and it's in real time, and now he knows his utilization in real time. So yeah, so this T&M amount here, this is the dollar amount. This is the dollar amount for your T&M hours. So the thing is that you work 12 hours, but doing what? So our system knows exactly what you should have been billed out for, whether it's $50, $100 an hour, and it multiplies all those hours, and that you get this number. Okay. So just note that people have different billable rates depending on the customer, the job, the task they do. So the system will calculate this amount for you. And it's not trivial, right? Like, you can't say that someone's billable for $100 an hour, because some jobs you'll be billable for 50, maybe 150, maybe 75, depends on what he's doing and for whom. Fixed price is the same thing. Non-chargeable, same. And the total. So it takes the total here, pretty self-explanatory. And then finally, at the end, you have your effective rate. Now, can anyone tell me, this is maybe a hard question, is how much of your gross revenue in a company should go to payroll?
Mine's over 50%.
Yeah, right. So so over 50% goes to payroll. So that's like almost two times. So like, or 50%, right? So in other words, does anyone here know how much a company needs to charge out an employee for the company to be profitable? So basically what we're saying here is, there's a certain number, right? Like, so if you're billing out, if you're paying someone, let's say $30 an hour, what should you be billing them out for? And there's kind of like a rule of thumb. It depends on the industry and the job and everything else, but typically speaking, the rule of thumb is 3 times what you're paying them. So you should be billing them out 3. You might have heard that, you might have not, but typically speaking, when I talk to people in the industry, they're saying 3 times what you're paying them is what you should be billing them out for, which is great to hear and great to say, but what does that really mean? Because how do you know what you're billing people out for? You know what your rates are, right? But how much are your staff actually doing? And that's where this thing comes into play. And so this column, the effective rate here, is showing you, and these are all made up numbers, so don't take it too personally, whatever it is. This is showing you based off of all your hours that your people have worked and what they should have been, what you've decided they should be, what their ratios are. This is your effective rate. And that's good to know. Because this will show you what you're actually billing your staff out for, and it's critical to keeping your company profitable. So any questions about this report? It's kind of a neat one, but it's a little high level. And just remember, some of the problems that we had at the beginnings were, some staff are overworked and some staff are underworked. Well, this is going to show you that, right? And then, there's no real answer to who are your most effective employees, right? So if you look here, now you got to take this all with a grain of salt, of course, but you can see here that like this guy is working at $100 an hour versus this person over here is working for 86. And if they're the same person on the same level, if you're comparing apples to apples, then you can ask yourself, well, why is this guy 100 while this guy is 94 or 86? Now, obviously, an administrator is going to be less, significantly less, probably 0, but or near 0. But if you're comparing apples to apples, it's very useful. And this report can answer that. Yeah, you can see if you're billing out right. Exactly.
Yep.
So, okay. So let me go back. And yeah, the last kind of slide that I want to show, almost done here, is the job map. Now, this is the job map. And when you create jobs in Job Book, you can add a pin to a map. And, when you create a job in Job Book, you can add a municipal address, a legal address, even a long legal address. And from here, you can see all your jobs and filter them. You can filter them by active jobs, scope, legal address, type of client, really whatever you like. There's lots of metadata that we have in jobs, so you can filter them out on a million different things. And I find it, being able to visualize jobs is very valuable. And now when you have a new job and you want to see any jobs that you had in the area in the past, it's really easy to see that. You don't even need to know the address. You can just look at the pin and zoom in, and then you can see, right? So you're not memorizing all of these. Where I'm from, in Alberta, we have LSDs and things, and we have these numbers west of the 6th meridian, 5th meridian, 4th meridian. That means something to people where I'm from. You don't need to really know that if you have a geospatial map like this. So it's really easy to see things like if you have control or benchmarks in the area and what have you. Any questions about this? It's a job map, and I'm actually curious. people listening right now, like, do you guys have something like this, or is this pretty standard now for everyone, or do you guys still have a map in the office with pins everywhere? Like Trent, what were you using before?
Yeah, I know it was. There wasn't. Well, we would do the KML, so we would kind of do a pin drop in a KML, and then we would do it every 6 or 8 months.
Okay.
And just kind of put them in together. But
yeah, so GIS, sure. I mean, I've literally seen a map with pins. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Google Earth based job index. Yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. We don't have that. We have an assessor parcel book with old jobs. Yeah, right. But this could be incredibly handy, and it can save you a lot of time and money. Yeah. So that's that's pretty much the whole, not the whole system. Like, there's lots that I skipped over, obviously. But any questions about this? Anything in here at all that anyone has? And before I go, I just have a couple more slides and then we're done. But that's kind of the end of the demo here. Yeah, great for planning purposes. Yeah. Yeah, it really helps. I can go on here. This last couple slides here. There's just some additional resources for you guys. So, there's Mentoring Mondays, obviously, Geoholics. We talked about the Business of Land Surveying group on LinkedIn. There's Land Surveyors United. Justin Farrow, I don't know if you guys know him. He's a great guy. He's committed also to helping everyone out here in the surveying community. If you're interested in getting kind of business tips for surveyors, feel free to sign up to the Business of Land Surveying. And finally, if anyone has any final questions, this is if anyone's interested in trying out Job Book, feel free to message me. There's my phone number. You can call. We pick up the phone at Job Book here. There's LinkedIn. If you want to scan the QR code, feel free. That will take you to our website. Yeah, Brian. I'll reach out to you somehow. Hopefully, you can go to our link and fill out the form, and I can contact you, or I'll try to get your contact information and all that. And yeah, thanks, David.
I threw it up here earlier, but I can grab it again. I threw your email in the chat.
I can put it in too.
Yeah, there you go. Just throw it in the chat towards
there
you go. Everybody can kind of grab that.
Yeah, it's Cyanic Automation. It was cyan, like the color. Yeah, thanks, Sean.
Love it.
Yeah, and then that's about it. If anyone has any questions, feel free, and that's it.
You guys are more than welcome to unmute and ask any questions you have.
Yeah. Thanks, Aiden.
Yeah, exactly. There's good stuff in all of these. I liked yours. Some of the costing and the reports and stuff that you're running out. Obviously, they're all going to be different. I mean, all three of these softwares will be different. So
yeah. I think
some are more sophisticated and some are a little more easy to use, right? I know Brenda had jumped off, but I wanted to kind of chime in on her because it's all about the time of inputting, right? And I think it all depends on how much data you want to input.
Yeah.
What some of the minimum things that you want added to every project, because a lot of the stuff's going to be in your project folders, and so sometimes you're just utilizing it for the project map, or you're utilizing it for, like you said, for job costing and stuff like that. So I think it can be as, integrated as you want it to be, and it can be as simple as you want it to be when it comes to inputting. And so I know she had jumped off already, but hopefully she watches the end, and so we can kind of do some of that. I know that is some of the pain points, probably even for you or Q-Factor, or even I'm sure Compass, right? It's like one is backloading everybody's data. When I integrated ours stuff, we just kind of picked a date and just said, come, August 1st, we're going to implement, and everything forward will be in there. And so now all of a sudden we're 5.5 years built into it, but there is some places that, like you said, you can go back and help people backdate some stuff and stuff. It just depends on how much information you want going backwards or forwards. So
we recommend honestly just starting to use it, trial it out, use it with our system. You can kind of try it out for free until you're ready to kind of pull the trigger. Like, we're pretty laissez-faire. Try it out, and then once it works, then we can talk about moving all the old data. Maybe you just, like you said, you had a cutoff, and then from that time on, it's in the job book system, and then you go to the old system for the old stuff, or you hire a summer student one year 2 or 3, and then you say, okay, start. We started this in 2023, so 2022. Here's the book of paper. Start punching them in. And working your way back. Or you can call us, and we can work with any system and get the data in there. So if that's like really essential.
Back to the time software that is your guys' own. You're not using like a T-Sheets or anything like that, right? It's all your own coded.
Yeah, so we're totally agnostic to accounting systems. So the timesheets are really critical, and we've built the timesheets specifically for surveying. And I even found with T-Sheets as an example, like with T-Sheets, I don't think you can actually put in like equipment and material in T-Sheets, or it's not trivial.
Just put it in notes.
And with ours, is like in the surveying world, I mean, you need to keep track of all your equipment and materials, what you've used on the job. Like, not to sound like, even the stakes. I mean, I hear it a lot where the stakes aren't cheap nowadays. Prices, wooden stakes are getting expensive, and you got to keep track of that.
I think we're up to like 37 cents a nail with a feather and a nail now. I mean,
I mean, I'm hearing all sorts of people with the wooden stakes where they're getting the wood from nowadays. But like, that's what it's built for. So the timesheets, and they're such a critical thing. So but like, we work with any accounting system. So whether it's Xero, Sage, Simply, we're accounting agnostic, we're payroll agnostic. We try to work with any system that will let us work with it. And we, out of the box, everything gets exported to Excel, because I know how much people love Excel. And so they can always do whatever they like with Excel from our system right out of the box.
Love it.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Anybody else want to add to that? Chime in, ask questions? I'll put Will on the spot if you're there. What are you using, Will? Mr. Wing? Nope. Megan's got.
I'm here.
Oh,
sorry.
No, you're good. Sorry, I was gonna put you on the spot. What are you using for any kind of project management type style software?
I'm using just a mixture between Google Earth and ArcGIS stuff that I've got.
There you go. Perfect.
Yeah,
and then just regular QuickBooks.
Yeah, pretty much. Well,
yep.
I mean, kind of got a mix of both, and but Doug and I have had some deep conversations.
Good.
At the table after a conference.
Love it. That's awesome.
Doug. Hey man, how's it going? Good to see you.
Yeah, I know. As a small business, it's kind of hard to grasp all this stuff, but Doug had a good way of putting it into perspective, because, all this data has to be measured and has to be recorded, and in order for you to be able to come back, years later and look at it, kind of see where everything is at. So even for a small company, it's definitely something to aim for. So,
and as surveyors, I mean, we all love numbers, right? It's just another bunch of numbers sometimes, but
I love it. I have a joke for everyone. Surveyors are great with. I'm still working on it, and I'm probably ruined it. But surveyors are great with numbers. You can confuse a surveyor. Put a dollar sign in front of the number.
But I'm
But I'm bummed.
There you go. I love it. All right. Sorry, Megan. Megan's got a question.
Yeah, hi.
Yeah,
Did
Megan.
you say, Doug, that this software can track technology utilization as well? I thought I heard you said something about that.
Equipment and materials. Like, so if you're using any equipment, it'll track that too for you. Like the hours used. I think a total station or you know, a drone or whatever, it will track the hours for that too and account
So
for it.
how would you differentiate multiple pieces of the same kind of technology? For example, multiple drones. Would you track the serial number usage, or what
Yeah.
would that look like?
Yeah, we have like a unit number. So you could have like a DJI drone or whatever, and then the unit number for it.
And does that tracking allow you to generate, I don't know, like quarterly reports? So my software has a lot of the features you discussed tonight, but we're trying to figure out a way to implement technology equipment utilization, you know, as we upgrade to more expensive scanners and things like that. We're trying to figure out a way to track the usage.
Yep. Yeah, it totally tracks all the equipment and materials. So that's just a piece of equipment, right? So it tracks it, and then you there's reports, the line item report or the basically the line item report would do that for you. If I can get to it, but
yeah, if I can email you, you know, later
Yeah.
or whatever, just to get an idea of what that kind of data looks like. You know, it's kind of
Please do.
different. I work for a full service firm, so we work with all of the disciplines, and you know, the company software doesn't track that. So the surveying team is trying to figure that out on our
Yeah.
own.
Yeah,
Very cool.
email me. Yeah, email me.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah,
For sure.
absolutely.
I love to talk to anyone really. Like it doesn't. I'm here to help. So if I know we might know other solutions that aren't job book that might be better, but definitely that's an important thing is tracking all that equipment because you guys spend so much money on equipment. It's crazy and it doesn't have much of a shelf life either. It seems like we're talking like it seems like well. I was at a conference recently and they're like, granted they were equipment vendors, but they're like, you know, it's like 3-4 years and all of a sudden it becomes kind of useless. You got to buy the new stuff. So you should be keeping track of your utilization. So, you know, is it worth, maybe you can just rent these things. I mean, I don't know, leasing it or I don't know what. It might be
Well, we
worth it.
do rent some actual scanners and things
Yeah.
like that. I know on my end, at least, you know, predominantly engineers run my firm. So justifying, you know, a $300,000 scanner to them or something crazy, like we have to prove that it's worth it,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
showing utilization, showing, you know, dollars earned per hour or something like that, you know, it's really useful in making the case to buy it.
Yeah, in our system, basically what you could do and what we recommend is you put an hourly rate on all your equipment and materials, right? So even if all your, so a lot of people think, oh, I don't need this because all my jobs are fixed price. But the reality is that's where you really need it because your everything is fixed price. So you should be accounting for as many things, all your equipment and putting a price on it. Even if you're not charging it to the customer, you should still be putting a price on what that is and figuring that out. Even if it's make that number up, it doesn't really matter as long as you have an idea. And you should have a good idea of what like your hourly or daily rate of your equipment is. You can figure it out. You know, talk to your accountant if you have problems with that, and then put that in there, and then yeah, it will absolutely tell you what you've billed out for the year, and you can prove it to the engineering firm. Like, here you go. Here's all the jobs, all the everything. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
I was going to say on my last estimate I got, let me the estimate that they put it together with. Let me find it. It actually had like a utilization rate, like an hourly rate associated with it, like how much it was gonna Let me find it because it was on their software. I thought it was pretty cool. What it was going to cost per hour for payments over the life of the loan and that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see if I can find it. We spent a little over 600 grand the last 2 years, but let's see this
On
one.
rentals or on this
No,
equipment?
on equipment. Yeah.
And you know, everyone has their own accounting reasons for doing their thing, right? Whether they decide to buy, like some people like to be able to write off a bunch of money to buy for equipment, but leasing, again, I mean, talk to your accountant about all this, like what's better for you. Like I've heard all sorts of stories when you're a business, right? Like you should be buying the car, you should be leasing the car, you should be renting the car, like leave that to the accountants, but you should be accounting for it in your system at least.
Yeah.
You get the timesheets.
It came from my equipment financing. They had it. If you at 24 months, it cost you $56.16 an hour. If you paid it over 36, it cost you $38.96 an hour. 48 was $30.36, and then 60 months cost you $25, 25.26 an hour. So it come from my my equipment financing, but
yeah,
so
you can go to the equipment financer and get those prices.
Yep.
And then round them up and whatever.
Right.
Like it doesn't really so much matter. And then you know. So yeah.
Love it.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Anybody
Awesome.
else before we send David off to dinner? I mean, send Doug off to dinner.
Yeah.
Nobody? That was good. I love it. These are some of my favorite stuff. So I enjoy all these conversations. So
for sure. Yeah. I mean, thanks everyone for sticking around all this time, I guess.
That's it. Love it.
Yeah.
All right, everybody. Have a good week. If any of those that jump on Wisdom Wednesdays, we'll be back this week as well. So otherwise, we'll be back next Monday for mentoring. So
awesome.
Have a good week. Thanks, Doug.
Bye, guys.
Bye, guys.